For over 150 years, the question of magical self-initiation has been really vexed. Can you get magic to work without initiation? Well, after doing magic for more than 20 years and hosting the world's largest online magical training community, here's what I've discovered that can help you get the best results. In this video, you will learn how to assess if you need self-initiation, how to know if it's working, and some steps you can take to get started with it today. This is all top of mind at the moment for me because I've just returned from doing some initiations with Dr. Alberto Violdo and the native shamans of the high Andes of Peru. And as you can probably tell from the verdant hotel surroundings and some background noise from some of my new little friends, I am still in the Sacred Valley processing the expedition. But basically, when it comes to initiation in magic, there are two wolves inside of you. On the one wolf, you can just do what you want. You can take that Ouija board to the abandoned mental hospital and see what comes back with you. On the other wolf, we have what legendary shaman Martin Prechtel says, which is that until you have their permission, the spirits can't even see you. But what if there was a third wolf, forged in secret perhaps, inside of you? The wolf of intact culture. So this week I was initiating with the Quero in Peru, but last year I spent time above 4,600 meters in the Bolivian high Andes in ceremony with the Kayawaya. These legendary healers descend in an unbroken line from the high Inca kings themselves, where they were their doctors and midwives. And what I learned from the Kayawaya is that anyone can memorize what herb is useful for what thing. But until the Apus, which is to say the mountain spirits, know who you are, the medicine's not going to work. And after 1,000 years, the Apus certainly know the Kayawaya. That's why they're sought out right across South America for their healing skills. Each Kayawaya healer is initiated by another Kayawaya and introduced to the mountain spirits that way. The Kayawaya have what aforementioned legendary shaman Martin Prechtel calls an intact culture. You don't have an intact culture. I know that's what a shocking statement. And why this is important is that you can't initiate self or otherwise into a non-intact culture. And this was a really big idea in the 90s with men's groups and such, that all you really needed to do was initiate boys into manhood and things would be fixed. And it sounds good. It sounds right. But an initiation is an invitation into the sacred. It is saying to a boy that as a man, he now has to uphold the values of our culture, which means you'd be inducting him into our culture so he can, get a job at an Amazon factory until he's replaced by robots that end up delivering him the fentanyl that kills him. You see what I mean? This is what most people get wrong. Firstly, they think that initiation is the solve for all their magical problems. And secondly, relatedly, they think it's only up to them. But by definition, there is another side to this exchange. There is the side of the spirit world. You can't just declare your self-initiation. The mountain spirits, so to speak, need to know who you are, and they have to respond. So what can you do if you don't get to decide whether a self-initiation happens? You make a subtle shift towards humility. You declare yourself open for transformation. You declare your readiness for initiation. A powerful component of magic is making room for the sacred. That openness generates a charge that the cosmos responds to, but which you goes up the mountain, so to speak, which you do you put forward? Well, it's actually not your best behaved one. It's not the one that you think maybe the spirits will like the most. It's the honest one. When a culture is not intact, the invitation from the sacred has to issue from another direction. And teacher, healer, medical doctor, podcaster, and all around one of my favorite people, Dr. Kelly Bergen, had this to say about self-initiation recently on her podcast. Because of how our society is structured, so many of us carry our childhood woundings into adulthood so that we actually become children running around in trauma bodies, masquerading as adults. And something I've learned through the fire ceremonies of my healing tradition is just how much extra energy is unlocked when you shed all those well-worn patterns and defenses that you've built up around your trauma body. What happens then is that the energy that you unlock changes the world around you. And here's how to bring those unlocks into your own life. And the most important step is step one, which is to set the intention that whenever you, let's say, lovingly encounter one of those sites of trauma in your life, that you consider it the beginning of a self-initiation. The universe will respond to that. You self-initiate, you transform, you repeat. You initiate on another trauma site, you individuate through that, and you go again. You do this with shadow work, with energy healing, with soul retrieval, really even just living the examined life, even just being in a state of noticing as you move through these repeated situations in your life. Kelly Brogan says that with each cycle, the terrain becomes more familiar and yet somehow more beautiful. And I love that. The familiarity is the coming home to yourself, the deep sense of belonging that is actually the hallmark of a successful initiation. And I have a video linked up below that goes into more detail about this process, but basically the steps are: 1, set the intention to view any ruptures in your life as invitations to initiation. 2, when those ruptures occur, ask yourself, how have I made myself a match to this? What is looking to be healed in this repeated situation in my life? What kind of lemonade can I make with the lemons that God keeps giving me? And 3, start living that examined rather than unexamined, rupturous life until you bump up against the next rupture and you go again. And you know, C.G. Jung once said that really this is the only process that he thought might prevent nuclear war. Which brings us to the next critical concept if you are going to understand self-initiation, and that is sacred time. If, as Martine Prechtel teaches, you can't initiate into a non-intact culture, well, how do you get to an intact culture? One shadow work process at a time, one healed human at a time, no shortcuts. You know, it'd be lovely if you could just be taken off into the jungle by some wise elders and come back, you know, a month later with like a side ponytail or a lightsaber or something. And maybe in a century or two, we actually will be able to do that. But I low-key kind of just did that. And let me tell you, until our culture looks like the Kayawaya culture, this is what self-initiation and initiation in general looks like for us now in this time. Now, you still definitely can sit with and co-learn with other cultures that are open to such a relationship. There is tremendous medicine in doing that. But you can't expect the complete solve to all your magical or initiatory problems to come from an exotic foreign purchase. Otherwise, you're actually perpetuating the non-intact culture. Oh, I'm buying my solutions. I will have that because I want it. Next day delivery. That's actually the non-intact thinking in play. And that keeps the state of intactness permanently in the future. So this is what I mean by sacred time. Every culture on Earth, everywhere, everyone, including our own, up until only a few centuries ago, has an understanding of different epochs, of different eons, of what ancient cultures called the cycles or the ages of humanity. Think of the Mayan Bactuns, think of the Hindu Yugas, or here in the Andes, we have the concept of the Pachacuti. And what an understanding of sacred time means in your own life is the realization that initiation is not just or even primarily for you. To truly initiate is to understand what is yours to do in this time, with this incarnation. One of the hallmarks of an intact culture is that it's not only in relation to the ancestors, it's also in relation to the descendants, to those who are yet to come. This is something we can find and step into in our own lives when we onboard a notion of sacred time. The whole point of initiation is to put yourself in service to the holy, to what needs to happen in this moment. It's not because you think it might be a bit cute to be a wizard. I mean, it is, but you will fail at the first door if that's what you think. And an understanding of sacred time makes your initiation in these conditions the same as initiations 10,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, or in 5,000 years' time, because it is a holy or sacred response to what needs to happen now. The right ceremony for the right conditions. Now, the thing is, magic will still work without initiation. I did it for 15 years without getting any kind of initiation or lineage outside of Reiki. But that's not quite what initiation is for, if you think about it. Self-initiation in particular is a summons, an internal summons to that which you have always known, which is that you are important to and belong in a sacred cosmos. And that makes magic work better, but only if you approach the situation in the right way. So yes, you can self-initiate, as long as you understand the situation you were starting in, who you were doing it with, and who you were doing it for. It's not just something you can decide or declare after reading one book with no effort. It starts with making that inward turn. So watch this video next to get started on your shadow work journey. The fate of the future might be at stake, or click the link below to join the world's largest online magical training community.